But I think we have to get free, and understand the process and understand the hazard which is happening here and there.
Yeah.
To create the piece, more or less to recreate the piece.
And to make homage
So
to the masters and the models.
Yes.
It's a way as Cage, to liberate the personality of composer, because me, Salvador, compose.
Yes.
I let it
leave it to us.
Let it compose, let it goes on the different parameters of music. So is the hazard in another way.
Well, thank you for this. We have to look at the clock and see Roberto.
Okay.
The question was how do you... would you like to be...
No, okay.
Maybe...
I can define myself as a composer, like an emotional composer. For me, the start point is always the emotion, because when I was children, I felt in love with music for an emotional reason, not intellectual, not structural. And so, for me, the form, the structure is important for to control the emotion in the music. The origin of my piece is linked to this situation. Is the story of my emotional relationship with the Messiaen music, and from a technical point of view, I used some modes of Messiaen and for the creation of some melodic lines and some harmonic structures, but not strictly, in the freedom and with some poetic suggestion, but without self-limitations. And this is the usual approach to the composition for me. And I often write music in a different style. I like jazz, I like tango, piazzolla, I like Bartok, Ligeti, and so I like William Byrd, Orlando Gibbons, and Vaughan Williams to quote an English composer, and or Roberto was. It's not so famous in Italy, but the organist sometimes play his organ works, and this situation perhaps depends. I am a beginner composer, if I can say so, and perhaps in the future I will change my approach. Perhaps will be less ingenuo in Italiano. Naive. Okay, but actually, for me, it's important to be don't tell lies and express myself with my music.
And how did the notes come? Where did they come from? This is what we wanted to know. How did you start composing?
But for a suggestion, a visual and a poetic suggestion. And so there is a geographic image. And I try to translate visual or emotive image in a not definite but geographic musical aspect. Perhaps sometimes I see a score like a painting, a picture, and the second step is to define, okay, thank you very much, to define the single aspect, the pitch, the color, the dynamics. Often is a gestural aspect. I think perhaps in the history of music, to the beginning of the Fifth Symphony of Beethoven, the notes are not so important, but the gesture is fundamental. It's a point of break with respect to the past tradition. And so many times the music beginning in this way. And also the vision of the whole structure, the entire structure, is a step after the suggestion of the beginning.
Any questions? We have with us another of the composers who participate in the project, Drew Wilson, who wrote for a septet, and we will hear his work here, I think, in November. I'm glad you came, because I didn't introduce you at the beginning. They're not here, but now they know that we have another composer. And nobody wants to question any further anything?
Yeah, I have some questions.
You have some questions?
Yeah.
Please.
I would ask you for how imitation is linked with your way of writing, because I didn't understand exactly if imitation is a sort of way of use improvisation by the musician, or is your intention in the first part of your piece? Because I understood a lot of the, imitation in the expression in the middle of the piece.
Imitation in which way? In musical way?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
like
a little
canons
parts,
or
a sort of of pattern inside the language. A sort of yes, there's the cloud, but the microscopic part of the cloud is sort of
like a micro
pattern.
imitations inside.
Yeah, but I don't understand
Did
exactly.
you see the score?
Just a little, very, very quick. I didn't understand if this sensation is connected with their interpretation, or is it an intention of you?
Not at all is my intention. So is the result, this chance state between the computer results and okay, I want to go for chaos to order, or vice versa. Okay.
Transformations.
Yes, and that's all. So it's another surprise.
Yeah.
And me, so okay, you can say, okay, but where is your intention as a composer? There is in another way, not in that way, because I don't calculate these imitations.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I felt this just, and I was quite surprised because you talk about gas, and I thought instead I find even a link between each other. So the piano with sonorità.
Yes,
Sonority, and then the violin is linked with this. It's a sort of electricity inside, and I thought about this kind of passage and connection. But it's a feeling, it's just a feeling.
Yes. But maybe because of the different rhythms, maybe there, if you have the most quickly figure, for example, I don't know, I say 7 and 6 and 5 and 4, you can maybe, but rhythmically, because not in the pitches, there's no like Roberto in his he's a third piece, no? The violin.
Yes.
No. Just.
I don't calculate.
Very little part.
Yes, it's like a surprise. I don't know.
A sort of puntillistic.
And maybe it's because of this, because the points completely exploded individually. So you or we as listeners, we can build or compose for the different points, and you choose maybe one point, but the other you don't choose. So you make your own melody.
But what is more important ultimately, the idea that a composer has, being it abstract or more human, or the effect it has on the audience? Because I remember...
Well, a composer can't control the effect to be some of the audience is possible.
So you don't think of the projection of your work, and you just compose it.
But you can't assume how an audience is going to react to a piece.
You can't.
Who knows? No, of course you can't.
Every different audience potentially has a different reaction.
That's true, yes.
To assume how they would react would be patronising, I think.
But the reason I ask...
I think we try to translate or formulate our ideas as best way we can. We can never control the impact on the audience.
No, but you don't even think about it.
We try to be good.
I don't know if maybe unconsciously you think about it or not. I don't know.
I think we try to be good composers and to formulate our ideas musically as best as we can.
Because I tell you...
And that is a way to try to...
But there is some dependence on shared assumptions. There has to be some dependence on shared assumptions, isn't there? Order and shape and pattern recognition.
Because
they very basic.
Of course, I think it will have, especially if you come from the same kind of culture or cultural references. But you can never be sure.
No.
But I tell you...
You read things differently.
Well, you can always talk about creative misinterpretation. People always talk about it. It's very true. I mean, some great things in music happen through complete misinterpretation, like Schubert misinterpreting Electra by Strauss. He said, I started my sort of road really to experimentalism because I heard Strauss's Electra. I completely misheard the piece. He hated it.
I played Roger Norrington's Beethoven symphonies for my father. And he said, this is not my Beethoven.
Mm-hmm.
Same piece, same notes, but different sound, different tempo, different characters, different things involved.
That's performance decision.
But Norrington is also closer to Beethoven's own tempos, for example, historically.
Alberto would like to ask.
No, I want to say that to me, what Mr. Brisotto said, that music starts with emotions. That is, whether a composer says it or doesn't say it, whether conscious or unconscious, that is always the case. Music is simply emotions transmitted through sounds, whether those sounds are...
disagree with that.
Whether those sounds are... That is music, like color transmits, is a media for transmitting emotions in painting. And
emotions are
if you are writing for someone else's emotions, you don't use your own. That means, for instance, if you're writing film music and there is a scene of violence and you have to write violent music, and perhaps you are not feeling violent at that moment, but you have to write it because it is the film. But otherwise, if you are a genuine and a sincere composer. Even if you're not aware of it. If the music is very confused, means that at the moment, whether you are aware of it or not, means that you are confused. You have many problems. If your music is very rhythmical, if your music has a lot of rhythmical changes, if the music is bright, if the music is dark, here Bjorn used the word melancholy first, is an emotion. Everything is an emotion.
But what about electroacoustics? No, Phil Cashian disagrees.
I think that's too simplistic a view. I think I'm just true to my material. When I'm composing, it's the material that I'm interested in. I compose. I sit down each day and work, regardless of what state I'm in. Emotion's got nothing to do with it whatsoever.
Yeah. But I remember I wanted to say that the question sprang up because I remember at the times when I was fascinated with Stockhausen, because in Romania, as a student, it was Stockhausen's explosion in the world. And so in London, I managed to go to the London Coliseum, where he came. This must have been some 25, 30 years ago. And in the first part of the concert, as it were, he explained on a blackboard his music. The music was written for a large orchestra and a dancer, I think. And the concept was so interesting. I mean, it was fascinating. And everything that he explained, you took in, like mathematics, like something else, but it was of such complexity. And it reached you as a listener. It really did. Perhaps even emotionally, because he was explaining the rests, and how long exactly this rest has to be, and the other rest, and the notes, and so on. Interval comes, so that the explanation must have been about 45 minutes. Then the interval comes, and then we come to the second half to hear the piece. And it was nothing. I mean, it was just, what is this? I mean, after all that explanation, you expected something much more superior, or some kind of dead end. So, yes, I mean, this is why I asked, is the idea the most important? Because with the Turner Prize,
yes, but
they get someone's idea who just switches the light on and off, and there is no painting.
But the idea also depends on your emotional state of that particular moment. Everything comes. You are a human being. You are not a machine.
No, but
so everything comes from inside first. It comes to the head via your heart. Via what you are
from
feeling.
your inside can come I don't know, mathematical formula.
Yeah, as well.
It's an emotion, maybe. So you try to realize this idea or this emotion, but it's not always emotion. I think maybe for the 19th century music, okay, maybe. But now why not introduce the scientific thoughts or why not? And to rely with your idea, I think that I'm not sure what the audience receive. I'm not sure, and sometimes I think that explanation is good, but sometimes it's not enough. So listen and
absolutely.
Think what you do, feel what you do, and construct what you do, because every person is different. And as I used to think that maybe the only thing that I can think or in this way is, okay, I am one person of the multiple audience. As an audience, maybe I compose, okay, I try to communicate something, okay, but the only thing that I know certainly is that I am sitting in the audience and I listen and I feel or construct something. It's the only thing. But I can't ask for all the audience what it means, ta-ta-ta-ta.
Yes.
I can, no, it's impossible to I don't know.
That's a very interesting thing, isn't it? The individuality of perception. Everybody has their own individual perceptions. You cannot determine another person's perception, because it's always going to be unique to them, their associations, where they come from. So it's a selection process, isn't there? I think that, for me, music has to be rich enough to allow for all sorts of connections. Some will completely pass others by, others will mean something. Also, emotional reaction is interesting, because I find my reaction is emotional in a way to all music if it's well done. It's a kind of admiration, a kind of excitement, as a line is sustained or a continuity of thought is maintained in a sort of thorough way, a sort of admiration of mental virtuosity. All these things can occur and give me a feeling of a highly emotional reaction. But actually to say that the music comes from an emotion, I think actually one can create an emotion out of a musical basis. You can find your material and then find your emotion coming out of the exploitation of the material. So I think that sometimes things can come in different orders. And to say that music is pure emotion would be rather like saying it's vitamins or elements in the periodic table. There's not a sort of a direct correlation, I don't think. It's far more interesting in its interactions.
And then Salvador, being inspired by the pines of Rome, or being inspired by a penicillin or a computer, it's still a feeling. It's not the fact that you are inspired by something contemporary or technical or modern, or by a car, by a Rolls Royce. It's still a feeling that you have.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Probably the composer can decide every time also what element is more important. Do you know A.T. Cummings, the American poet? Some poems are pure game and divertissement with the words in the paper, and it's very funny. But there are traditional poems, so lovely, and love poems, often extraordinary. And it's the same. This is the same poet, because probably there isn't a only way to to work across. My English is confused.
Well, I think we will have to end here because we have to prepare to give a concert at 7 o'clock, and it's getting a bit short, the time.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And well, whoever will be in Bucharest with us, we don't know. Philip Cashian will come with us, and yes, will inspire another talk.